Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and everything in between. Welcome back to GEEXX Watch. This morning when my wife got ready to go to the office today, she sent me a quick text saying it was 4 degrees below zero. So it seems like a perfect time to talk about surfing. So today we'll talk about Surf's Up, an animated film from 2006, the image of which you will see here. So there will be some spoilers for a 20-year-old movie, give or take. So this movie is about Cody, a rockhopper penguin who lives in Antarctica in a fishing community of Shiverpool. Cody has wanted to be a surfer ever since he met his idol, Big Z, who was doing like a world tour to promote himself. Gave Cody a little necklace with a Big Z on it. So Big Z, shortly after that, tragically died. And during this mockumentary, recruiters show up for the 10th annual Big Z Memorial Surfing competition. Cody jumps the chance, makes friends with Chicken Joe, who is basically, he behaves like a stoner. It's a kid's movie, so there's no actual stoner going on, but they bond over their love of surfing and the fact that both their fathers died tragically. Cody's father was eaten by a sea lion, and Chicken Joe's father was turned into a six-piece dinner meal. God, I love this movie. I love that. That dark little bit of humor there. So they go to the competition. They meet the villain of the story, a big emperor penguin named Tank Evans, who has won this competition the last 9 years and is expected to win this 10th year in a row. Cody kind of challenges the big dude, and you think it's this big moment, but he actually crashes and burns on his first attempt. The lifeguard, Lonnie, takes him to her uncle, named GEEXX, who is a slacker who lives in a big tree in the middle of the forest on the island. He's a slob, lives in a slovenly tree hut. Cody, he eventually agrees to teach Cody to surf. You know, they bond. Cody goes to the competition. Yada, yada, yada. That's a broad outline of the story. As far as the film itself goes, it's actually got a lot of heart. I mean, yeah, it's a kid's movie, but, you know, Cody has a journey. He goes from being, you know, just concerned with nothing but winning and being the best to learning that's not what it's all about, as you might expect from a kid's movie. But still, it's, like I said, it's got a lot of heart. It's also got a lot of humor, because as a mockumentary, you're occasionally reminded that the camera crew is there. Not just because they'll do cuts away to interviews and stuff, but like there's a scene where it's like, who are those guys? Don't pay attention to them. I don't. It's like, what are they doing here? Go get, you know, people occasionally talk to the camera crew. But there's also little cutaways, like there's these 3 cute little baby penguins, not baby, well, they're young penguins, child penguins, all a little fluffy. And, you know, they make childish observations. And, you know, GEEXX has his, you know, his journey as well. Tank Evans, the bully. No journey for him. He stays the bully and kind of a unsympathetic character. He's a kids' movies villain. This film did not do on the box office really, which is a shame. This is it Sony Animations? Yeah, Sony Animation did this kind of during their heyday. But unfortunately, this came out the same year as Ratatouille, so that children's film got all the attention, and this didn't get it nearly as much. This film, I took my kids to see us in the theater, and it was we loved it. And I'm always surprised to find out a movie that me and my 2 children loved, that the rest of the country kind of slept on. But there's also a lot of things about the making of the movie that I found out after it had come out and after I watched some of the extras on the DVD that I found out really fun. One of them is that um, in most films, most animated films, everything is heavily storyboarded. You know, they'll draw little pictures and paste out the story as pictures, and they're usually very meticulous about that, especially for animated films. I mean, live action films have storyboards too, but for animated films, it's usually considered very important to storyboard because that's, you know, animation is expensive and time consuming. But the advent of CGI, these guys did something that was kind of unique in that they didn't really do that. What they did was they instead built like a 3D version of the set. Like if they were doing a jungle set, most animated films would just build it from the camera's point of view, you know, and that's all you would see. They built completely full three-dimensional set of that location. And because of doing it that way, they could place the camera anywhere they wanted within that area to film the action that they wanted. So they could actually film it as if they were looking for the best camera angles, as you would on a on location set. That's unheard of for an animated film of any type, and I can't think of another film that did that. There may have been others, but this is the only one I know that actually did something that creative and interesting. The other thing too is that a lot of this film was improvised by the actors. I mean, Cody is voiced by Shia LaBeouf. Lonnie is voiced by Zoe Deschanel. GEEXX is voiced by Jeff Bridges. You know, you've got other actors in here. Joe Heder, James Woods voices the show promoter. Mark Cantone, Diedrich Bader. They also got a couple of actual like professional surfers to voice the sports commentators of the surfing competition. I found that fun too. But like another thing that's different from this film is that usually when your voice actors usually do a lot of their dialogue alone in a recording booth. They didn't do that for this film. They got Zoe Deschanel, Jeff Bridges, and Shia LaBeouf in the same room together for their dialogue scenes together. They would place them at opposite ends, like far apart, so that their microphones wouldn't overlap, you know, for sound. But they had them riff on each other. They just kind of gave them an outline of the scene. This is kind of where we want the scene to go, and go, and just let the tape roll, so they could record their voices and record the banter back and forth. You know, and not just these three. You know, I can't remember the guy who voiced Chicken Joe, but the same thing. When they were in the room together, whenever possible, they had the actors working in the same room, which is very, very unusual for an animated film. You know, usually they're recording alone in a booth. They may sometimes, I mean, this does sometimes happen for important scenes where they feel the actors need to play off each other, but it's also not uncommon for one actor to be in a room by himself while someone else reads the lines. It may be the actor voicing those lines, or it could be the director or some other schmuck. But whenever possible, they had these guys in the room together so that they could dialogue like normal people. The guy who did Tank Evans, there's a scene in the film where he is showing off his trophies and he is describing them, and the entire thing was improvised, which I did not know till watching the extras for this, and it was just, knowing it was improvised makes it even better. I mentioned the small little child penguins they had, you know, in some of the scenes. They had real children as the voice actors. So, and they incorporated some of the scenes, some of the kids' body movements into the scenes as well. Like, you know, there's one kid while he's being talked to, he's just kind of doing the kid thing, you know, saying his lines, waving his arms back and forth, and they kind of put that as the kid in the film. Same, there's one with like a girl and she's like, you know, talking and doing stuff with her hands. You know, they kind of incorporated the kids' movements as they were speaking their lines into their performance in the film. And I like it when filmmakers do something creative. I mentioned when I talked about the Lego movie how these guys went above and beyond, in creating the Legos for the film, the computer animated Legos for the film, and the people making Surf's Up kind of did the same thing in the creation of this film. And it's really, in my opinion, it's really a shame that this film didn't do as well as it should have. You know, and I've mentioned things with other films too that didn't do that well. Um, when my kids were little, I took them to see all the animated films and not just Disney and Pixar. If there was a good film that came out, we went to see it together. Um, Even, not even the good films. We saw some mediocre ones, a couple not so mediocre ones, but and a couple awful ones. One of the things about being a parent, you do wind up having to endure some awful entertainment because of your kids. But I think I was fortunate that I didn't have to deal with too much of that. That was few and far between, and my kids grew out of that as they grew older and became more discerning in their choices of entertainment. But yeah, Surf's Up is a great kids film. I mean, and it's even, you know, not just for kids, but even, for more family friendly entertainment. I mentioned there's some dark humor that Cody's father was eaten by a sea lion. That's not something that's really kid oriented. So again, they didn't really pull any punches. I like it when a film does not talk down to their audience, when they don't simplify it, because it's considered children's entertainment. Kids are a bit more sophisticated than a lot of people give them credit for. And having raised two of my own, and having been a kid myself once, I can certainly testify to that. So, Surf's Up, good family entertainment, and I really liked it, and I still really like it. And as always, thanks for watching. My stuff is crap, and until next time, good hunting.